Greetings to the best family on YouTube. Well, in our opinion at least, our very own EDC family. I'm your host, Prophet, and with me as always is the Professor. And we thank you so much for joining us for yet another EDC video. And another knife video, right? I promise we'll review other things other than knives in the future. Oh, I digress. If I may, I would like to answer a question that we got last week from a particular viewer, which I'm going to be honest with you was a little weird. Now, before I answer said question, I know you folks have really enjoyed seeing what I'm carrying that day or the day. So today I decided that for my large knife, I would carry something, well, large. This here is my Voyager, my Voyager from Cold Steel. I believe this is going to be in BD1 steel, and it is very unique, as you can see. Has a fantastic shape, and it really is normally used for just self-defense. I really didn't carry this today. I just thought I would show you. I know some of you say, hey, Prophet, some of the knives you show are pretty big, but I'll be honest with you, I have bigger knives. As you can see, I can literally fit both hands on this knife if I put it on the choil here. And you still have some down there. I could lock my fingers like a golf swing, you know, we could do whatever. This is the Cold Steel Voyager. Eventually, we will have the Voyager on the channel. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Let's put that aside. So seriously though, what I carried today is the Mirage. This knife is by our local and wonderful friend out here, Winter Blade Co., Brian Winters. The reason that I'm carrying the Mirage right now is because we are in the middle of writing the review for it, and I wanted to actually have some new real-world experience with it. This is a magnetic-driven knife, and we will have this on the channel next week. If you're curious, the blade steel is M390. And it really does basically flip open with magnets as soon as you pull this down. Now, obviously, with a little wrist flick, it's even cooler, right? But anyways, we'll talk a little bit about that. So this was the primary knife that I carried this week in preparation for our upcoming video. Well, speaking of big, right? You want to see the big flashlight I carried? We carried this guy today. Whoops, let's see here. Oh yeah, that's what we carried today, right? We carried this big old Olight today. Just kidding. But I'll be honest with you, EDC family, how cool would this flashlight honestly be, right? If we, ooh, look at that. Look at that, EDC. This is no joke, EDC family. What if, and I'm just saying what if, there was a world where you wanted to carry both of these, right? You got your Voyager, right? And then you've got this wonderful Olight here. This one is the Mini Marauder, I believe, if I remember correctly. And it is a 7,000 lumen, 600 meter flashlight. But again, this is not really what I carried today. I really didn't carry these two. I just thought it'd be funny to show you that we can carry things in XL here at the channel. So we are going to put these away for now, like we just said, right? And my secondary knife that I carried today, actually my real secondary kit, was going to be this wonderful little flashlight here by Olight. This is the ET EOS. I think it's the 3T, I want to say. This is a limited edition one. And if you can guess what this metal is, I would be super impressed. But we're going to not say that. We're going to see if we can guess. Now, we also carried a carbon fiber little mini guy here. This is a knife that locks with only the detent. So it's detent locked. So you literally just push it back down, open it, push it down, open it, push it down. And so this type of knife is really only used for slicing and cutting tasks. You're not going to want to really do much with this. And then I have a Machine Era USA made pen that I carried today. Today is not brass, or no, it's brass, not copper today. I've got a few different ones, as you all know, and that is what it is. So this was my small pocket configuration. This was what was in my pocket today, along with the Mirage. And Prophet, what about your carry piece? Well, I figured since we've got a USA knife on the table, I'll carry a good old-fashioned 1922 peace dollar. So we carried this as our lucky coin today. So we've got our peace dollar there for everyone to see in its glory. Yeah. All right. Love the sound of silver. Let's get back to this message we were talking about, guys. This message came from somebody named D. Vader, right? And normally when we get a message from somebody, we get it on YouTube or in the comment section or an email. However, this message came to us via what I'm pretty sure was an Imperial holonet or holonet holoprojector for those of you who want to get super critical. But I think we're way too many light years away from Mr. Bader because his message was, "Tell me the best way to reach the bounty hunter named Boba Fett." Well, I mean, I looked it up and Mr. Vader and Mr. Boba Fett have been gone for a while now, right? So I can't really respond. God, space stuff, right? It gets weird. Anyways, that's some sad news, right? Let's move away from the sad news and bring it back to the light side, if you will. The light side of this conversation. As Mr. Fett and Mr. Vader may be gone now, we do have the opportunity to have a small part of them right here on planet Earth in the Milky Way galaxy via Microtech, huh? They've had some pretty cool collaborations over the years, haven't they? But the one that they're doing with Lucas or Disney, this may be just one of my favorites. So it may not be news to you that today we're going to introduce the Microtech Ultratech Signature Series Bounty Hunter in apocalyptic finish with the Boba Fett color design and with the Mandalorian logo on the back. Now, don't let it get confused. This is a Boba Fett knife, but this is the stamp of the Mandalorian. The helmet of the Mandalorian is what Boba Fett wore because his father wore it. We won't get crazy right now, but just so you know, yes, I'm a Star Wars nerd. Check. I'm an EDC nerd. Check. For those of you who may not know, I'll be explaining the name of this knife right now. So we're going to shorten this to just Bounty Hunter instead of that whole mouthful of fun stuff, right? So let's get this out of the way and let's look at and talk a little bit about this knife. Now, the Bounty Hunter, like we just spoke about, is a reference to Boba Fett, or Bounty Hunter is what they call it, who in the Star Wars universe is a character that is a real bounty hunter. And he gets a lot of folks confusing him for the Mandalorian, and honestly, this knife really doesn't help. But who is really Boba Fett, or what was Boba Fett? What's the fictional character in the Star Wars franchise, right? So, first appearing in the Star Wars Holiday Special, for those of you who didn't know, in 1978. I believe he was voiced by the great Don Franks back then. He is an armored bounty hunter featured in both the original and prequel film trilogies. In the original trilogy, the character is a supporting antagonist, really mainly portrayed by Jeremy Bulloch, but was voiced by Jason Wingreen. Now, Boba was notable for his taciturn demeanor, never removing his helmet. Boba Fett first appeared in The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, after the special obviously, where he was employed by the Galactic Empire. But then, in 1983, in The Return of the Jedi, he was then serving the crime lord Jabba the Hutt. But in both films, he was portrayed as the bounty hunter. Now, while seemingly he may have been killed off in canon, right, in Return of the Jedi, after falling into a sarlacc, he has since reappeared in the Star Wars universe, Star Wars canon, after that particular film, thus confirming his survival within the new canon, right? Now he's portrayed by Tamora Morrison. So also, just a side note, Daniel Logan also plays a preteen Boba in the prequel film Attack of the Clones in 2002, which does reveal the character's origin as the genetic clone and adoptive son, therefore, of his father, Jango Fett. Also, by the way, was a famous bounty hunter. Now, Morrison, this is a little side note, first actually appeared in the Star Wars media playing Jango Fett. Pretty cool, huh? I believe, and then also the animated series The Bad Batch further reveals Boba to have born Alpha, and for him to have a twin sister named, you guessed it, Omega. We could keep going happily forever and ever in perpetuity, but I'm afraid not only will we lose subscribers, the professor may call a real bounty hunter on me, which I really don't need. Now, I will now continue into our next 3 sections, the first of which we call Knowledge is King. That will be then followed by the professor's particulars, and finally, it will have the comparison portion of the content, which then we will segue into our carry or bury game to find out if this knife will be proudly carried by Empire and Rebel forces alike, or will we be burying it in our carry or bury coffin on the compound here? Let's find out. But for those of you who do not have time to stick around, remember, we get it, which is why we give you a wormhole sort of retreat to our actual carry or bury game. What is this wormhole, you ask, if you haven't been here before? Well, you may not have to watch all of our content to find out. So if we recommend the EDC product or the gear that we're focusing on in the particular video, okay, instead of putting a price on my head here, okay, let me just be quicker then, all right? So basically, whether we're gonna say we're gonna carry or bury this knife, you may not have time to go through our 3 new segments, which we will now give you a portal, which will then take you to a timestamp, which will take you to the carry or bury game. So you do not have to stay here for all the bits and pieces. All right, folks, I get it. You want to get going. Time is money. Let's get you through the portal. So like my granny always says, whoever coined the saying that time is money, they haven't seen an empty piggy bank wrinkle and then take its teeth out. Oof, granny, I tell you what, that does not leave me with the freshest thoughts in my mind. But it does make a bit of sense. Get it? Sense, time is money, sense. Okay, without further ado, without all the hoopla, get ready. We are going to open the professor's portal. Let's go. See you all soon, EDC family. See you for the carry or bury game. For those of you sticking around, we'll be working right into our Knowledge is King. Now, here is the professor's portal. All right, folks, we'll catch up with them later. But EDC family, for those of you that are staying, thank you so much. And let's get to learning. A quick recap on how this works, especially for the people who are new, but it doesn't always hurt, right? Like we said, you'll have an animation for Knowledge is King. Then you'll have another animation for the professor's particulars. And then finally, the animation for the comparisons. After those 3 sections, which you will always have an icon knowing where you are, boom, we are going to get into the game. And we'll welcome back the people who use the portal. So, great, gotcha. Knowledge is King. Let's learn. Who is Microtech? Who is Microtech? I got more boxes, but that seems really silly to keep pulling them out. We learned in our very first carry or bury game, when we weren't really streamlined, if you will, and we've gotten a little bit better, right, at our research, script writing process. Maybe. Let's just skip to this. Let's really talk about the content, right? The knowledge content. Let's skip bail and get out of Dodge City here about profit talking. I get it. I'm a bit too much sometimes. Okay, a little bit about Microtech. From as far as I can tell, most people say they were founded in '94, but there's some sites that say it was late 1993. Either way, since the early to mid-90s, the first prototypes from Microtech were being made in Vero Beach, Florida. Over the years, a large portion of the knives and parts being made and assembled right here in the good old US of A, Microtech has then such made a very good name for themselves. Not just in the knives, but the quality, the materials, the high tolerance levels, the innovation, the fit and finish, not to mention a product line that has something for just about everyone in the EDC community. Like me, you may have come for their OTF or automatic knives, but stayed for, well, everything else, right? I mean, seriously, got a lot of stuff. Microtech has not only cracked the can of whoop butt, but they, in my opinion, have invented the 40-ounce Costco packs of whoop butt. and have not only created them and opened them, they made them available for the entire EDC community. What do I mean by this, EDC family? USA made. Like I said before, a fantastic in-house team that can bring us new and incredible EDC knives, tools, gear. Not to mention, they have an excellent and proficient staff in just about every area of their company, right? From their engineering team, production team, right down to their sales and marketing forces, in which fingers seem to stay on the pulse of the EDC world, right? We are such proud members of, you and I. All that, and then they also collaborate, right, with many, many of the greats of the EDC world, the tooling world, the engineering world. Not to mention that Tony Marifone is arguably one of the greats at production customs. Honestly, I don't know of an EDC lover that has a list of their one day or someday, or if I win the lottery knives from Microtech or from Tony Marifone. Honestly, I do. I'm sure you all do too, right? It's no wonder why some of them sell for ridiculous amounts of money. But thankfully, there is room for everyone on the budget list. Well, most everyone. Now, what I will say is if you really look into the Marifone's mission statement, it's super funny and simple in my opinion. Make the best knives possible. Seriously, well done. But I got to be honest, Mr. and Mrs. Marifone, it's time for a new goal. Because if you go this above and beyond on all the things that you do, what else wouldn't you be able to do? I couldn't imagine what would be nicer with you two in positions of power, right? I mean, if you guys decided to, I don't know, make the best milk possible, am I going to eat way more cereal? I don't know. But I'll tell you what, I like those odds. I digress as always. But so that we talked a little bit about Microtech, right? But this leads us now to Ultratech, which is the flagship size of the knife that you are seeing today. First released in 1999, the Ultratech is the flagship model of the Microtech OTF lineup, OTF standing for out the front. It has remained their best-selling knife pretty much since its inception. Now, it was Microtech and Benchmade who in the 90s decided to give a front lift, facelift. Well, maybe front lift was correct. Anyways, they decided to lift these out the front tactical knives out of oblivion and bring them back into popularity. Now, while Mr. Marifone didn't reinvent the wheel here, he did pave the way for more powerful springs, a much better process of production, fit and finish, customization, and most importantly, the super tight tolerances that they're known for, okay? Now, there is a reason that in my and most other people's opinions that Microtech and why Microtech for decades now has been one of the kings of the OTF, right? And again, OTF, out the front automatic knife. Now, obviously today we have new innovators from people like G&G Hawk, for instance, which I'm super excited to have them on a video one day for you folks. So at any rate, I digressed again, right? The Ultratech may not be in reinventing the wheel, what I was saying, but they certainly had design and production, imagination, all kinds of things that helped redeliver OTF knives, making some of the greatest OTF knives to date. Pretty darn cool. Now, we actually kind of came back full circle there, right? Right? To the fantastic in-house, the fantastic production, the custom mindset, collaborative teamwork of Mr. and Mrs. Marifone and Microtech. Whew! Folks, honest to goodness, I could go on and on, but we talked about this earlier, the sense, your time is valuable, sense, right? Please go check out microtech.com for more amazing history and knowledge. You better be careful, though. I'm going to warn you right now. You may end up with your signature. Signature? Get it? Signature series? Your signature on an online sales receipt for your new Ultratech knife. Signature series. Okay, before we wrap this up, this Knowledge is King section, I do want to mention one more thing. You will also see this in the description. So if you would like to see the actual process of an Ultratech coming into an existence, being born right there at the factory, you want to go to microtechknives.com/birth of an Ultratech. Now, that's not all one word there, right? So when you do the /birth, you'll have a slash of, I don't know what that slash is called, folks. It's the line in the middle, not the line on the bottom. I'm sure Professor will put this up on screen since I am really having a hard time with it. Again, microtechknives.com/birth -of -an-ultratech /. Good luck, Professor. Okay, so that is really going to wrap up Knowledge is King for the most part. Honestly, there's a lot of great information out there on Microtech, and you can find a lot of it really easily. And again, links will be in the description. So as always, hope we were able to teach you a little something about the company or the maker or the makers of this knife. And that means it's Professor time. We get to move on to them stats, which is Professor's favorite part. We like to call this section, obviously, the Professor's Particulars. Again, to help you know where you are in the video, you will say goodbye to the Knowledge is King icon, thus welcoming the Professor's Particulars icon. After this, there's only one icon left, the comparison icon. After that, we get to play Carry or Bury. Fantastic. So let's begin. So today's specimen, as we spoke about earlier, is the Microtech Ultratech Signature Series Bounty Hunter OTF Dual Action Apocalyptic Blade M390 Tonto Single Edge. Okay, that's just a lot of talk, right? So let's just really talk about the actual stats here. I'll move over so Professor has some room here. The blade length on this guy is 3 375 thousandths of an inch. Cutting edge is 3 125 thousandths of the inch. You lose a little place right here. I'll get my handy dandy poker out here to kind of show you. You're going to lose just a little bit right there. Now, the close length on this guy, so when we've got her closed up, we have 5 inches exactly, which gives us an overall length when the blade is deployed of 8 375 thousandths, for those of you like me who aren't fantastic at math. We have a blade thickness of 129 thousandths, nice little thin blade. You have an overall handle diameter of just under 1/2 inch. The blade material, like we talked about, is Bowler M390. It is also a Tonto single edge distressed, which they call their apocalyptic look. It is a flat grind, but not a full flat grind, as you've got the little area here. It is the blade finish, as we just talked about, is apocalyptic. The blade type is going to be a single edge, no serrations, or plain edge, no serrations. Now, the handle material is 6061-T16 aircraft aluminum, and it also has their distressed look, or what they call the apocalyptic look. I will note that when you buy one of these, you will not have the black and red screws. I actually did this. No, forgive me. The person that I bought this from actually did this, okay? And so when I purchased the knife, it actually had these on there. I believe I picked this particular guy up from Rob over at Apostle P YouTube, who is the original knife sharpening service on YouTube. We have his stuff in the description as well. So, as you know, the knife locking mechanism or knife type is a dual action or a DA, out the front or OTF, automatic. The opener is a side opener. As you can see, it's on the side, not on the front face of the knife. The pocket clip is tip down right hand, which means it goes in your pocket this way, so it sticks out of your pocket. It is a pretty darn deep carry, okay? It does have a glass breaker and a lanyard hole on the clip. So you've got a small lanyard hole here, okay? And then you have a ball bearing glass breaker here. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. The knife is made in the USA. And that will conclude professor's particulars, thus ending the professor particular icon and making room for the comparison icon. Welcome, comparisons. Folks, I know we normally do a pretty thorough job with these, and you'll see in a minute how it's going to be a little bit different than normal. Regardless, we do have to get through this. What better way to do a comparison with a Microtech Ultratech Signature Series Tonto than with a Microtech Ultratech Signature Series Tonto? So sorry, probably have them like this. Pretty cool. So obviously the big difference you're going to see in these two knives, they're basically identical, right? You're going to see a little bit of difference in your hardware. So you still have the glass breaker on both knives. You still have the pocket clip, same pocket clip on both knives. By the way, pocket clip on the Microtechs is actually pretty darn good. I actually really like their pocket clips. You do have the contour of the Ultratech on both knives. They both have this single edge Tonto blade, as you can see. I mean, honestly, they're basically the same knife. So I do have another OTF I wanted to bring out for you. I don't remember the name of this, but I know the model is the P39. If somebody can help me remember who the maker of this was, I believe it was a company in Florida, and they usually made really cheap OTFs, but this one at the time was one of their most expensive ones that they made, and it actually is really nice. It has a very nice side action here, but I want to show you the difference. Now, if you had a Microtech Tradoon, you're probably looking at more of a similar blade length here, but you can see it's a big difference. But mostly, if you look, that handle is most of the difference, right? You're getting almost the same amount of blade in this guy as you are in this guy. And then the thickness is really out of this world. Now, just so I can show you, I know a lot of folks have Spydercos, and I happen to have a Spyderco on the table here. So I am going to show you what it looks like next to a Spyderco Paramilitary 2, give you an idea. Length, you're darn near spot on. You get a little bit more blade cutting geometry, I believe, with the Microtech. A lot thinner profile, though. I mean, literally, we can place this little guy in here, and you can see the difference. And if we close these guys up, kind of show you that aspect too, you've got a lot thinner of a knife here, even though the PM2 is not a thick knife. The handle obviously is going to be a little bit longer on the Boba Fett just because it doesn't have the contour. But if you were to straighten this out and remove the glass breaker, I'd say the Spyderco would be longer. Just a little bit of an extra deal for you on that. Finally, I wanted to show you with another Microtech knife that we have on the compound available. We've got a lot of stuff in boxes or in some of the safes, so it's really hard to always get everything we'd like for our comparisons on the table for you. But another really good idea is to look at the Microtech MSI with the Microtech Ultratech. Now, this is a very large knife, and I know we talk about this an awful lot. I have very big hands, but this is by no means a small knife here. And so you can kind of see we're dealing with, when it comes to the size comparisons, even though this is a pretty large knife, fully deployed, this Ultratech really, with the glass breaker, is almost the same size, which is ironic because you can see the difference in the blade here. Pretty darn cool. Go ahead and put that away. And as we always like to do, whatever our knife of next week's video is going to be, we like to show that to you too, just for fun. So next week we will be going over the Mirage. And the Mirage is by Winterblade. And you can see this is a magnetic driven knife, which is pretty funny compared to an automatic knife, because even though this is definitely not automatic, what's really kind of cute is you pull the button down, the magnets are good enough to slowly flip the blade out by themselves and then lock it up really well. But what's cool is then, with a little bit of the thumb rest, So it's ironic because if you've ever used a Microtech, you really have to kind of put some force usually on some of these guys to get the blade to manipulate. But I digress. So as you can see, that's going to be what we're looking at for our next week. So we're going to go ahead and put the Mirage away. We will see you next week, Mr. Mirage. This is going to conclude our comparisons. We are going to say goodbye to the comparisons icon. And wait, what is that? The portal. Oh, fantastic. What good timing. I love it. Welcome back, EDC family. All of you that have taken our very own Professor's Portal. We'll give you a moment to collect yourselves. So, unless you have a bounty hunter chasing you, remember, don't blame the portal for that. That's whatever you did taking the portal. And again, we get it. Time is money. My jokes are lame, blah, blah, blah. For all of my fellow knife nerds that did have the extra time today and stayed with and watched everything, we hope you learned something. We hope you appreciated what we did. And we hope that that will help you make your decision on if an Ultratech is right for you. Enough of my jabber. Okay, we love all of you, right? We really do. So I think it's time for the carryorbury game. Now, folks, remember, we'll review positives and negatives of the knife. We do have a video, and in that video, video 001, it explains how the game works. We will always start with the positives. If there are 4 positives, we stop and move on to the negatives. If there are 4 negatives, we have a tiebreaker. We denote positives here on the channel as pockets, literal icons of pockets with the word need stitched into them, and we call them needs. The negatives are represented by nails, as in nails in a coffin, because if a knife or an item or gear that we review doesn't become need strong and it ends up having more negatives than needs, well, we bury it. We bury it in one of these little coffins in the backyard, and I'm pretty sure you've seen that a couple times. But that's what happens on the channel. So is the bounty hunter going to chase me all the way to my pocket, right? Or are we going to slop it in some carbonite, throw it in the coffin, and bury it in the backyard? Let's find out. As always, EDC family, we first deal with the needs. And that was the sound for the needs. As you can see, represented by the new icon you're seeing. And the first need is reliable action and snappy action at that. I honestly, just action. I mean, right? So Microtech is known for their authoritative mechanisms, and rightfully so. This doesn't change here at all. This knife fires open each and every time that I slide up the button. Now, for those of you who aren't comfortable or familiar with OTFs, let me show you something. Let's just say that you're still worried, even though it's a very tough opening situation. Let's just say that it's in your pocket and you're worried, right? We're going to take our little carryorbury rag here. And we are going, now there is a little hole on the carryorbury bag, but that was from earlier, or microfiber. We're going to just hit this. We're going to see if we can get it on both cameras here. Let's see what we can do. Oh, I gotta actually get it. Ah! It doesn't have any new cut in it. Now, I probably wouldn't feel super pleasant because of the point, but as you can see now, our blade is completely dead. There is a stopping point where if anything gets in the way of the blade, it'll fall off of its track. All you gotta do is pull it back up, and you can start using it again as normal. But for all of you that are worried, that's how the safety mechanisms work in the OTFs. So not only do you have a super snappy action, you have a safe knife pretty much too. Not a bad deal. It's a wonder why so many people don't like these knives. Well, I almost got carried away, but that noise was the number 2 need, and that is the blade to weight ratio. So often on our channel, this is one of my big downsides that we have on a knife. But with the Ultratech, you're going to get a great ratio. You're basically coming in for per every inch of usable blade, the knife weighs about 1 ounce. this is perfect, and especially in an automatic, which is not always easy to do. As we showed earlier in the comparison video, this little guy does not even come close. Doesn't even come close, and it's like holding a little brick in your pocket. But not this guy. It's very nice and light by a whole lot. Microtech always finds a way to, lighten up handles, keep the components nice and small, clean, keeping the design simple yet effective. Ultimately, they're pretty good at giving us lightweight but easy to use tools, and robust if on top of that, right? That, my friends, is the third pocket, and we're going with options. So this is a need that maybe you won't all agree with me, but to me, this one's fun. Not only can you get Star Wars themed OTFs, you can go crazy with all of the other options that Microtech gives you. The Ultratech may be too big for you, right? This knife may be too big for you. Well, guess what? They have you covered. In this configuration, they make a knife called the UTX 85 and the UTX 70. And they're exactly as it sounds. The 85 is 85% smaller, and the 70 is 70% smaller. Now that, or 70% of the, forgive me, I could have said that backwards. The 85 is 15% smaller, or 85% of the size. The 70 is 70% of the size, but 30% smaller. And it's not just it's in every aspect of the knife. It's like they shrink it in CAD. When you look at the UTX 70, they're pretty small. I mean, you're probably looking at something like this. I don't have one here to show you, but I encourage you to go to the website and take a peek at it. Literally, they're 85% or 70% scaled down from the original. That I should have went with that. That sounds better, but it wouldn't be me. So that not enough options for you? Okay, that's fine. We can also look at options for the blade style or look, the handles, the button configurations. Folks, they even have a model or two that give you two different opening options on the same knife. You can have the side button here, and you have a button here. I can't even make it up. It's pretty darn cool. I'm telling you, they've got all kinds of stuff. I've even seen Microtech keychain knives, OTF keychain knives. They're pretty cool. But I can keep going on all the options you can get for the knives, but I will also say because they are the standard of OTFs, you also get lots of customs or options from other companies, from holsters, kydex or leather, screws, the inner workings, boron coated stuff. You can literally go on and on. In fact, I actually have my preferred way to carry this guy is with a sheath. Kydex sheath. I mean, it fits in there excellent. It doesn't rattle. I love this thing. This sheath is from Linus Sheathworks, LINOS Sheathworks.com. We'll put that in the description. But seriously, guys, what a fantastic knife. Absolutely lots of options. You really can't go wrong. Was that 4? Oh, nope, I'm being told by the producer here that that was 3, and I'm getting stuff all over the table. 4. What was 4? Oh, I remember. Look, Ma, one hand. I like this. We did this with the last knife we have, but it's seriously such a great positive. This knife can be operated and used with one hand, with or without gloves. You can cut, you can do your dicing, slicing, whatever you need with it, right? But with one hand, you can also bust a window if you need to, because this knife has a glass breaker on the end. So even if you don't want it in your pocket, because remember we talked about this, I use the Kydex sheath, you can throw it in your glove box, put it in your car. God forbid you get into a spot where you need to get someone out of a car, a baby stuck in a car, something. You need to cut your seatbelt. I don't know. Apocalyptic times, right, guys? This knife will cut your seatbelt, break the window, get you up to safety, all one-handed if you prefer. I love knives that can be used with one hand. Love them. And that is number 4. And as always, we got to 4 pretty quickly. There's some pretty cool qualities on this knife, I have to say. But are there any negatives to add to the scales of balance? Well, let's find out. But before we find out, let's do a quick recap of what the positives were, or the needs of the knife. Number 1, action. Number 2, the weight ratio. Number 3, all of the cool options, right? All the cool options. And number 4, look, Ma, one hand. One hand movements, openings, glass breakers. That gets us to 4. So, are there any negatives of Microtech's knives? Well, of course there are. Now, we may not always have the same opinions, but I like to do my research, look on Reddit, look on blade forums, find out what people say, what I think, hand the knife to other people. We'll get that figured out. So, number 1, you shall not pass. No, wait, Professor, that was from Lord of the Rings. You shall not modify. I like that better. Okay, you can't really modify these without getting into trouble and breaking your warranty. For me, that's a big no-no. I love the fact that Microtech has a really good warranty out there. I believe it's a lifetime limited. Go to their website to find out the actual information. Don't take our word for it. But what I do know is they don't sell any innards to you, and they don't want you working on the innards of their products at all. Now, for most knife people, lots of grease and lots of oil go a long way. For this type of knife, it's quite the opposite. In fact, you need to use pressurized air to make sure you're getting everything out of there if it's been in your pocket, things like that. There are some stuff you can grease on the inside, but again, grease, not oil, and you have to be very careful and very liberal, and not very liberal. Also, when you let's say this knife does have an issue, which this one did with the spring. It was just getting old. You can only use a spring so many times. I could have sent it into Microtech, waited God knows how long to get it back, paid for shipping there, shipping back, and then you're out your knife for, again, Lord knows how long. I prefer to do things myself. So I could find the parts on a third-party website and get them here pretty quickly, which is what I did and which is what I did. So yes, Microtech, I get it. I voided my warranty. But that shouldn't have to. In a day where we're encouraged to open and take care of more of our knives, thanks to Mr. Chris Reeves who started this, I'd be able to field strip this guy without losing my warranty. I mean, come on, that's a little stupid. Number 2, that, my friends, was another nail sound. We're gonna go toothless. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Oh, toolless. We're gonna go toolless, not toothless. All right, fine. You don't want me working on my knife like we just complained about. That's one thing. But screws, they can loosen over time. They really can. Just especially when you get a knife that bounces in and out with authority, right? Screws can start to get loosened. Well, I don't know if you guys can see this, but these screws are triangles, man. They're triangles. You've got a triangle screwdriver? I don't. So again, they don't give you one. You know, I've called to ask them for one, and they told me they'd ship me one. They never did. So what do? Well, thank God, this day and age, you have Amazon. You can get those screws off and do what you need, tighten them up, put Loctite on them, take Loctite off them, whatever your preferences are. But toolless, especially for having proprietary screws without a tool. That's number 2. Number 3, this one I'm going to get some kickback on. We're going to talk about OTF blade play. So what is OTF blade play? Well, it's out the front knife blade play. Can you hear this, EDC family? It used to be basically not just common, but it is what it is. Knives that are OTF are going to have blade play. There's no way that you can make a knife that's an OTF that's not going to have blade play. We heard that for years. Well, G&G Hawk did this. They accomplished it. Yep, and they accomplished it at a freaking high level, right? And I hope to God we have one day on this channel. But they have a zero play out the front knife. Well, and then guess what? There's also a gentleman that we reviewed one of his ProTech knives here, Mr. Hawkins, and he can make knives with zero blade play that are OTF. Sometimes you got to move forward, Microtech. With what you guys get for these knives, there is no reason, in my opinion, why you can't get some new tooling set up at the shop to give these to zero blade play. in my opinion. Now, again, I get that that's going to be me, not for all of you, but Mr. Marathon sells customs easily for $2,000. Why not get at least the customs with zero blade play nowadays? Now, when the Glycon came out, I was hoping that was it, but sadly, it wasn't. But we will have the Glycon here on the channel, so no spoilers, EDC family. All right, Professor, I get it. That right there was number 4. We're going to go with exclusive. Less? What does that mean, Prophet? Well, we got the 4 again pretty darn quickly. So, real quick, this one is more of a story. I'm going to go as fast as I can. When I purchased this knife right here, it was supposed to be an exclusive off of EK Knives website. And I bought it as such because I loved the copper and the black. Just really, really liked it a lot with the black knife. So I bought it. I was excited. I paid a hefty little price for it. And before it got shipped to me, after I agreed to buy it, well, I noticed that this exact exclusive knife, right? Let's see here. This exclusive knife, this Signature Series E-Knives exclusive with copper hardware, wasn't just an E-Knives exclusive. The same knife was on 3 other retailers, exact same model number, which tells me that Microtech will be in a little bit of a, I don't want to say shady, but I don't like it. It's a knife piratey, if you ask me. They'll make up a color scheme. They'll make up a blade scheme. They'll say this is a signature at this place. But then if you look that model number up, you can find it at other retailers in the exact same configuration and sometimes cheaper. Now, thank goodness I bought this from Rob at Apostle Peas, because Rob, kindly enough, gave me a better price on it after he talked to his seller, after we found out it wasn't as exclusive as we thought. But not everybody's going to have folks that they're dealing with like Rob, which, again, I promote that all day long. I buy a lot of my gently used knives from Rob at the Apostle P. We'll have his info in the description. But again, we got to 4 pretty darn quickly. And so, again, guys, I know your time is valuable and we've been at this for a minute, so let's move on, right? Let's rock and roll here. So what were the recap again? Oh, yeah. So number 1 was action for positives or needs. Number 2 was the weight ratio. Number 3 was the options. And number 4 was look, Ma, one hand. Folks, we did have nails too. We had 4 of them as well. The nails were, again, you can't field strip the knife without wrecking your warranty. The proprietary hardware, man, geez Louise. Without a tool too, come on, guys. The blade play, which we know is something that isn't really necessary nowadays. And the exclusive less knives. I mean, there was a time when you would actually make a real exclusive knife for a certain retailer. I'd like to see that become a thing with Microtech again, because all the other knife companies seem to be doing it real and honestly. With that aside, everyone's always waiting for me to fumble through to our revelation. What's the recommendation of the Microtech Ultratech Boba Fett? Well, of course it's going to be positive, guys. I mean, seriously, I bought a Kydex holster for it. If you don't know me well enough by now, you didn't know that this little guy's staying around. Not only is it Boba Fett and Star Wars themed, it's a Microtech. It's a great knife. But, and he keeps just, okay, what was the pocket? Really, what was the tiebreaker, I guess, if you will? Well, we could have went with a lot, like the TRM Atom and the Protex and all the other knives that are made in the USA. Like one of our personal channel's favorite knife reviewers, Mr. Nick Shabazz on YouTube, would say, having it made in the USA isn't the most important thing, but there is something for rooting for the home team. Thank you, Mr. Shabazz. And dare I say, he is one of the GOATs in this channel's opinion, well, along with people like Metal Complex and others. But like I said, we could have actually went with that, literally a bunch of positives on this knife, but ultimately we only go to 5, right? And I couldn't help but number 5 be fit and finish. I know we blasted the blade play, but that's a whole different story. Every Microtech has a wonderful team. We talked about that in the beginning, from start to finish. Their tolerances are above standards by so far. They do a superb job with heat treatments and finishes. They have a wondrous quality control. Honestly, all backed with a limited lifetime USA warranty. Again, folks, I can't be with this enough. Make sure you double check the website on how that warranty works. Don't take our word for anything. But this knife will not be buried on the compound, nor in the snow on Hoth, because Carrier Bury recommends the Microtech Ultratech Boba Fett. For sure. Awesome. Now about our knife today and all others we've had on this channel, but especially about automatic knives. Remember, we're YouTubers. We're not lawyers. You shouldn't get legal advice from anyone that isn't a professional, okay? Not even a bounty hunter, all right? But seriously, please look into this and know about your local knife laws, or you may have a bounty hunter coming to get you. Again, talk to a lawyer, talk to a trusted professional. And honestly, it really doesn't hurt, and we think you should visit, and if at all possible, support atki.org. They are the American Knife and Tool Institute, and they really are on the front lines helping us keep our freedoms and rights. Now, unless your hands or fingers are stuck in carbonite, which honestly, if they are, I'm probably all stuck in carbonite. Well, unless they are, you should easily be able to find us. All right. Now, I know we're not social media experts on the channel. I get it. But it's as simple as looking for the logo, folks. Come find us on social media, your favorite social media. We're there. We're learning, but we're there, right? So just simply click that search bar and type lovingly, or not, but basically just type it out. Or use voice command. Again, I digress. Just search for @carryorbury and look for the logo. If you would like any of the stickers or the microfiber towels or anything like that that we have coming up, simply PM us or send us an email to @carryorbury@gmail.com. We will send some out to you free of charge. Keep those blades sharp, keep those flashlights charged, and keep those Band-Aids close. And remember, you are the best tool in your daily EDC loadout. May God bless you. We look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you all so much for your support.